chief executive officer of the United States government. He can cut money. He can fire personnel. Number two, he's commander-in-chief of the armed forces. He can attack, he can send bad guys out of the country. He can call for military action. Number three, which is sometimes lost, he's chief magistrate and chief law enforcement officer of the U.S. government. Full stop. Am I correct?
You are. Presidents Washington's, President Adams, President Jefferson, President Madison, President Roosevelt I and President Roosevelt II, President Lincoln famously, all initiated, stopped, and directly managed federal prosecutions.
Hold on, hit me, rewind on that. They did what?
Initiated or stopped and directed federal prosecutions. In fact, reviewing the material on this over the weekend, Chief Justice Marshall yelled at the Jefferson administration for not moving quickly enough on the Aaron Burr prosecution. And he specifically was targeting Jefferson because Jefferson was running the prosecution. I mean, to the point of being involved, best I understand it, in depositions.
A treason trial, by the way.
Depositions and such. So practically speaking.
For treason. It was not a small case.
And the president was referred to as the chief executive magistrate. So there's no doubt under the Constitution, the powers of the president require the laws be faithfully executed.
And how is Constitution that done? And custom and tradition.
Well, yes, on top of that. Well, the custom and tradition flows from the obvious nature of his job as chief executive.
Yes.
And so what does that mean in the modern era? Well, in theory, it means President Trump could run the trial in any prosecution. He'd be in there playing prosecutor if he so chose.
Chris Hayes, I hope your producers picked that. No. Ari Melver. Give me that again, sir. Give me that again for the Ari Melver show.
The president could conduct the prosecution, quite literally conduct the prosecution. Now, there may be some rules related to court rules about lawyers being involved and such, but the point is he can run the prosecution, request an investigation, demand a report back, and this is what I think he should do. And we talked about this before. He should set up a special prosecutor, separate and apart from the FBI and the Justice Department. Use the Justice Department.
The reason is we got the right, but they're so overwhelmed with what they've got.
Well, they're overwhelmed and conflicted. Institutionally, they're conflicted.
Yes,
the FBI guys aren't going to take out the FBI. Right. There aren't enough good people in DOJ to do an investigation.
We don't control those buildings right now.
So
because you can't, it's going to take a while.
So the president can set this up.
Hold on. He appoints a special prosecutor, and that special prosecutor does not report to the Attorney General, reports to him?
That's right. An independent unit. An independent prosecutorial unit, investigative unit. He can have it staffed with individuals from other law enforcement agencies in the federal government or contract with private experts and private entities to do investigations and any criminal investigation or ultimately prosecution. And he can sign off. He can be as detail-oriented as he wants in terms of signing off on depositions, subpoenas, leads, what is pursued, what isn't.
He can be quite involved.
And he can, in the end, bless the prosecution one way or the other. Now, he may want to take the Attorney General's advice as to the validity, the strength, the weakness of a prosecution, but in the end, he makes the decision. And even short of that, he can call Pam Bondi over here today to his Oval Office and say, tell me what's going on. What prosecutions are you considering? Have you looked at this? Why aren't you looking at this? I want you to look at this, and I want you to get back to me.
Hang on. Ever since Watergate, that's been verboten, right? That was the whole purpose of Watergate, is to hive off the Justice Department so it would not have any association with the executive branch, and particularly the office of the president.
Well, no one's suggesting a corrupt abuse of office here. We're suggesting a vigorous exercise of his constitutional responsibilities, duties, and powers to ensure that the rule of law is vindicated. And does it mean targeting someone specifically just because you don't like them? You still have the rule of law. You still have judges. You still have the constitutional protections.
All the evidentiary, due process.
And defendants get all the rights, and witnesses or targets. No one's suggesting all that be thrown out. But I'm suggesting is that the Justice Department and the FBI are hopelessly conflicted. Really, I don't even trust they're competent enough to get it done, despite the new leadership. And it's no smear on the leadership. We just know they're crackpots.
That institutionally, these things are still riven with deep staters.
That's right. And you know, in terms of the appearance of justice, whether or not they are otherwise, you know, they may have a whole bunch of perfect staff, but the American people have lost confidence in both agencies. And, you know, I was talking to Marjorie Taylor Greene on the way out. You know, she made the point her constituents are upset about this. And, you know, our friends in the administration want to blame me or Marjorie or others for highlighting these issues and getting people riled up. It's like, are you kidding me? People instinctively know what's going on. They don't need Tom Fitton or MTG or Steve Bannon to tell them what to think. Donald Trump doesn't need any of us to tell him what to think. So this is a grassroots concern about the lack of justice and accountability, and you know, and frankly, our friends in the DOJ and FBI are giving us the equivalent of Q drops every week. Oh, don't trust us. There's a plan. We're going to roll them all up. There's a plan. There's no plan. There may be a prosecution or two. There have been significant firings, which are necessary but woefully insufficient. And the president should tell Cash, treat FBI like US, and in the meantime, treat FBI like USAID.
You're talking
shatter
about,
and scatter.
Shatter. You believe, because it's May of 2025, we're burning daylight. I tell people, if the deep state is not shattered on Trump's watch and destroyed, it's going to come back. It's going to come back bigger than ever. It's got to be done. It's got to be done now.
I mean, I was talking about online the other day. You went to jail for contempt of Congress. Pete Navarro went to jail for contempt of Congress. Garland wasn't prosecuted by the Justice Department. Why? You know, he hid the video. He hid the audio of the Biden interview because they covered up his mental incapacities by keeping that audio quiet. He refused and went into contempt of Congress rather than turn it over. Why isn't the Bondi Justice Department prosecuting him? I mean, it's right there. There's a package right there from the prior administration. They can reevaluate and review and decide whether to prosecute or not. And as I was saying at the beginning of the show, it's now time, I would suggest respectfully to the president, that if he wants this done, he should just do it. Order it, get it done.
Because they're going to, even if the two departments could do it, which clearly they're overwhelmed, the media is going to, and the Democrats are going to make the same firestorm. So just go ahead and set it up yourself. It's within the Constitution. It's within your constitutional rights. Let's get on with it.
No, and there are all sufficient checks in place. You know, it's not like he's going. We're not going to have judges pretending to be the president. You know, we're not going to have the equivalent of that, which we have now.
We have now.
You know, that's the tyranny the founders were worried about. Here, the president is acting as magistrate and prosecutor. And when you look at and people should go and look this up. Look at President Washington's handling of the Whiskey Rebellion. I mean, you didn't want to be on the wrong end of George Washington.
First off, people don't know that Hamilton and Washington actually came back and they formed a standing army, made Hamilton a major general. And Washington was going to come back and going to be commander-in-chief again.
He talked about the vigorous prosecution. Adams did, and Jefferson, as I said, ran
the Aliens Amnesty Act that we're using came from that time, the 1798.
President Roosevelt used Teddy, conducted antitrust prosecutions or ran them. President Reagan shut down a prosecution over national security concerns. So this is, you know, and I remember talking to a senior person in the prior White House, the Trump White House, someone who's not seen as a friend of the president anymore, but a very former senior official. And he said to me, Tom, after all this is done, we need to bring the Justice Department back into our government. And what an insight that was. And it's true, and it's still true. And let's stop giving the left control of the Justice Department. And my working narrative is, our working narrative should be, we need to reassert political control of the administrative state. Or as the left likes to say,
over the administration state. Yeah.
Political control of the administration state, or as the left likes to call it, democracy.
Yes. What is your top? You've sued now the administration I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this. Fenton, who's worked for years in this thing, and was we called the People's Justice Department during Obama. That if it hadn't been for you, I don't know where this country would have been. You were the one group that was in Obama's Freedom of Information request, suing Holder, the whole thing, forcing Holder almost into a contempt charge over the gun running situation. Mm-hmm. It was all you. How many times have you actually sued the current Trump administration?
Oh, it's got to be 10 or 12 times.
How could that possibly? I mean, this is what's so mind-boggling. When Tom Fenton's suing you, what are we doing? Why?
Well, in defense of the Trump administration, fish swim, judicial watch sues. So we don't get a response to our FOIA. We don't wait around for some politicos to say, hey, here are the documents.
But shouldn't they be instantaneously say, hey, the people want this information released? Because President Trump has said, hey, I want all, declassify the stuff, get all this stuff out here.
Yeah, I mean, FOIA is a great way to get information out. And I think they should focus on that. And I would see the lawsuits and FOIAs as opportunities for disclosure rather than legal headaches.
What is your punch list for the special prosecutor? Since they gave pardons to Fauci, they gave pardons to the
those pardons aren't valid. Special prosecutors should proceed as if those pardons aren't valid. They don't name.
We're making some news. Here, so give me that again. You're saying the pardons are a total joke, and the first step
they're null and void. Remember they taught us about the empty set when we were learning
the
that?
Null set.
Yeah,
right?
the pardons are the empty set. There are no crimes in them. What is it? How is it you even manage that? And now, of course, there's questions about how they were even, granted, which is another matter.
Auto pen and all this,
but you can't have a pardon for nothing. And, under that theory...
So the blanket preemptive pardons in Tom Fenton, the special prosecutor, step one, they're gone.
Yeah.
Right? We're going after the J6. We're going to get the Fauci.
You proceed as if they're not there. Now, does it mean you target someone who otherwise wouldn't have been... No, but you investigate the crimes associated with these individuals, bring them in, question them. And in theory, frankly, you can, even if they were valid, you can prosecute them and convict them, and the pardon kicks in at sentencing.
In other words, you go all the way through the trial, show that they're guilty, and then at sentencing, if this pardon's still valid, you debate it at that time.
Now, Steve, admittedly, this is going to be a tough sell to a lot of the Trump administration. But this is the approach.
It won't be a tough sell to Trump.
Right. This
is pure Trump. Maybe some folks, that's in and out of the room, but not to him.
But this is a sort of a kind of aggressive thinking I think is appropriate. We're in an emergency situation. These agencies and the people that we're talking about here tried to destroy the republic, tried to kill and jail Trump.
He's called, I think, 7 national emergencies. You're saying the emergency against the deep state is every bit as a danger to the national security of this republic, and it's an emergency, and you have to do this.
Yeah, we almost lost our country, not because of the border invasion, but because of what they were doing to Trump, and that's what separates us from Russia and China. It doesn't separate us from France because France doesn't allow that type of abuse.
Hang on for 1 second. Tom Fenton's in the House. Mike Lowell, we're going to talk about the U.S. attorney